welcome back to Peanut Butter Neya time. You're here with Neya, your host. So today I want to talk about planning life. This is a really interesting topic about things that I've discovered about how to plan, when to plan, why to plan. Is planning a good thing? I've thought about this a lot based on different experiences I've had, and I've come to the conclusion that it's not better to overplan your life. And I'll kind of dig into what I mean by like overplan, and kind of the different ways that you can plan without it being like a real toxic experience on your life. Um, yeah, let's get into that. Let's get into that. Right. So I think like growing up as a child, as I've shared, I think frequently in these podcasts, I was a bit of an airy fairy child. Didn't really, I wasn't very ambitious. Didn't really have like a strong goal. Never was like, I just wasn't one of those like I wasn't born out of the womb and was like, I'm a go getter. Let's go get this. Let's get this. I was definitely like, woo, let me discover and chill and just going through my vibes, being a kid, right? But I was never in like a super strict regimen. I think my dad in primary school, sorry, was trying to definitely teach us to be a little bit more disciplined, learn to like read a dictionary, like underline lines and like sit us down and talk us through it and find out what the origin of the word is, how to spell it, do like math regularly, do reading regularly. So I think just the normal things that a parent does to try and like set discipline and boundaries for a child, which I do not disagree. Planning for a child is like important, but I think there are different ways to go about this, and especially as you come into like your teens and university, like adulthood, working, so much of this planning is really dictated by your view on this and how it works for you. So I do think like up until the age of maybe you're 13, 14, your parents do really push you about like do set the plan for you, right? They don't push you, but they set the plan for you and they encourage you and help guide you into things because you're a still growing human and you don't know what you like and what you don't like. But I do think from my experience, and as I am now as a 27-year-old woman with lots of experiences, I think for my age, I think that not having a plan gives you a lot more adventure in life and a lot more opportunities to learn about yourself and experience life. And I'll give you some examples of this. So, I would say that like coming out of high school, sorry, I I don't think I actually knew what I wanted to do. Like everybody at my school was pretty academic. We had a really academic year level, did really well in like our final year IB and international baccalaureate and like VCE, which is what we did in Victoria. And so in a group of high achievers, I think, and naturally being that age, you kind of see what everyone else does, see what kind of you think suits you. But I don't think I had a strong sense of identity of like, this is what I like. This is who I am. Like, I'm an artist. I'm a scientist. I'm a mathematician. Like, no. I've always been very general. I think like I have a lot of curiosity in a lot of things, and always like very open to learn. However, I think when you come to, as a personality like that, when you come to choosing your university degree and like what you're going to do next, definitely um, didn't, that situation didn't really like play to my strengths. So I chose to do science coming out of high school, and I chose to go to Melbourne Uni. And I think that was just because it was like the best uni in Australia, best opportunity, and science seemed like pretty good. I wasn't like, I don't think I was a super sciencey person. Probably maybe should have done arts, but I think like being kind of Asian, arts had all these connotations of like doing bugger all. Like my dad used to make these jokes all the time. But anyway, I did science. So I got into science, which was really awesome. And then I took a gap year for a year. So I deferred university for 1 year. I went away to the UK. And when I went to the UK, I was 17, really mature, definitely hadn't been like independent or like when we used to go on family holidays, I definitely was just followed. And my mom would be like, "Do you want to help plan anything?" And I was like, "No, I just want to eat." Like, just had zero accountability. You know how it is. So I think that year away really helped me to understand who I was as a person and what I liked and didn't like, what my strengths were, and just set me up a foundation of at least understanding myself better as I came into adulthood at the age of 18. So when I returned from my gap year, I entered into university and I started doing science. And I chose to do computer engineering. And the story behind this is so funny. And if my friend, one of my like really close friends, Gordon from university and just general life, he it's so funny. So he laughs at me all the time for this story. But anyway, I wanted to do computer engineering because I caught a flight home from I think from the UK back to Melbourne, and I watched this show, the movie called The Intern, which is about Owen Wilson and I think Vince Vaughn. They go to Google and they do an internship at Google as like older adults. And then at the time of their life, it's pretty much an ad for Google, like very much so an ad for Google. But at that time, I didn't really realize it. And I was like, oh my God, I want to be a computer engineer. That looks so fun. Like, I'm going to do that. So I remember coming in hot and meeting my friend Gordon. I'm doing an orientation. He was like, oh, what do you want to do? I was like, yeah, computer engineering. I watched The Intern. I felt really inspiring. Like, I want to do that. And then, like, I want to go to San Fran and work. I'm pausing for just mourning my very ambitious and idealistic, but very poor understanding of herself. So even after my gap year, I thought I understood myself better. But then that just proves I did not. But life is all about evolving and growing as a human. So I would just like to say I think I've come really far. But these are the funny things to look back on and just like understand where you've come from and why over planning is not a good idea. So I was all set like I'm going to do computer engineering. Like this is what I'm going to do. I had like all this unjustified confidence in myself, which is probably better than no confidence. But anyway, so I did computer engineering. I did one semester of that. Failed what's it called? Calculus 1 and failed the robotics class. Mind you, I definitely took advantage of my classmates in class and was like, please, can you help me build this robot and make it move and dance? Anyway, it was not for me. And after I remember I failed those two subjects and my mom was like, oh, okay, what do we do now, la? Yeah, so my mom was actually really nice and chill about it. She didn't pressure me. She wasn't like, oh my God. My mom is not a typical Asian mom. She's very be free and be good at your grades, but also be smart about what you do. So she didn't freak out, which was really good because it didn't put extra pressure on me to feel like, what am I doing? So I realized that maybe computer engineering was not for me. So I took this real sharp turn to geology because one of my cousins is a geologist and is really good at being a geologist and working in the oil companies and stuff like that. Anyway, so I was like, maybe I can study rocks and get a job there. So that wasn't a failure. It was just like me realizing this isn't really for me. And so by then I had a pretty bad university score. And I was like, you know what? I need to really take a step back and think about like who I am and what suits me and what plays to my strengths. So by taking away all this planning of this idea of having to fit myself into this bucket of science because that's what I had planned, and going down that road, I thought, okay, I think I'm a very much so more of an analytical person. I like reading, I like writing. What plays to my strength is probably not math, probably not science and like conceptual things that are like sciencey. And I realized, okay, you know what? I'm gonna just take all my electives and try out law. So I thought as well, like, hey, I might not be a lawyer in the end, but I think law is a really good foundation for a lot of business things, a lot of if you want to run a business, you want to work in strategy, if you want to work in business ops functions, like it's just good to have that sort of way of thinking and mindset. So I decided to do these law electives and it worked really well for me. I did really well in those classes. But then I remember going to look at moving to Bachelor of Arts and doing a law degree at Melbourne Uni. And I was like, okay, that's just going to take forever because I had to get my grades up to get the transfer, then had to also do 3 years of a Bachelor of Arts, and then apply for a JD, which, let's be real, I probably wasn't going to get into the JD at Melbourne Uni. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna be strategic and take this opportunity to move to Deakin, which had a Bachelor of Laws, was willing to take me mid-year, and so I did it. And so I think that's the first time I really thought strategically about my life, as opposed to nailing myself down and attaching myself to a plan. And so I want to dig into this a little bit more about being strategic versus having a plan. I think that's why I'm kind of in my role that I am in now, being a product manager and like looking at a strategy and road mapping. But anyway, I think the ability to be more strategic and think broadly about your life and broadly about things and where you're going to get from point A to B is much better than having a very defined plan. Like, having a detailed plan is impressive for making like a recipe or for building a bridge, right? But for very large, high level ideas about like, where am I going to be in 5 years? Having a plan, I think, can be really dangerous and not the most beneficial thing to do for you as a human. And I think this is because we are always evolving as humans, and to bucket ourselves in and to limit our experiences to things that we think we're good at and not be outside of our comfort zone is very much so where we stop learning and we start being too comfortable and don't really test our limits as human beings. So I think that was the first moment that I really realized that I could be more strategic about my decisions and that I shouldn't box myself in to a plan. And I think that's the first moment I really realized, okay, you know what? Screw having a plan. Like, and I don't really think that this is like good to put all my eggs in one basket because it's so dangerous. I'm going to be more like open-minded about things and really be open to where can this path take me? What are the avenues that can come out of doing X decision versus Y decision? So yeah, and I think I'm not saying this is easy. I think it is actually really hard to get to this point and decide that, and it comes from life experiences. But I think, I was lucky because as like Asian descendant, I think that my parents were really supportive in not forcing me to be a certain person, to be a type of person, to go down a certain path. And I think I would just comment on this briefly. Like, obviously, I'm not a parent, but I do think when I want to raise children, I always think about like, how do I balance guiding them versus them, like, I guess not telling them what to do, guiding them, but also like trying to do the best for them. Because I think it's really hard to parent. Like, I think it's crazy hard because I think that you want so much for your child. You want the best for them. You don't want to endanger them. You don't want to be unhappy. You don't want to see them fall. But I think actually for them to like fully experience life, they have to do all those things. And I think that's such a crazy concept for me to like think about having to let that go. But I will cross that bridge when I get there, and we can have another podcast talking about parenting and my views on it later, because I think it's wild and I respect every parent out there. It's not easy. Another thing that I did later on in life that I think really validated for me further that it's good to not have a plan is moving to Myanmar. So I lived in Myanmar for 2 years, and I'll do another episode on that in a separate podcast because like it deserves a whole podcast and more. But I moved to Myanmar in 2019. I was not planning to move to Myanmar. Funny story, we had actually been on holiday to Myanmar, Alex and I, the December prior to him getting a role in Myanmar. And so that was December. We had a really good time, but we literally said to each other, will we ever move here? And we were like, no, we won't move here. And then he got a job offer in like May of 2019. And my parents, just demonstrating how awesome they are, were like, you know what, just go. Like, why would you? They were so supportive of Myanmar. We were living in Hong Kong at the time. I had just gotten a grad role. And they were like, just go. Like, Myanmar is not going to be the same forever. Hong Kong is always going to be around. Just go and experience things that are unusual and off the beaten track. Bless my parents for having the most like open mind. So I did that, and I went to Myanmar. And honestly, 2 of the best years of my life. I think about it so fondly all the time. And Alex and I would have lived and stayed in Myanmar for many, many more years. I would be there now if it was up to me. But life happened. So yeah, I think that's a classic example of no, I would never have put in my plan move to Myanmar or even thought about move to Myanmar because growing up, it's not really one of the top places you think of moving when you're coming from Australia, right? But an amazing experience that truly changed me as a person and formed me into the person I am as well now, and my outlook forever in life is definitely impacted by my move to Myanmar, which was not part of my plan. But when I looked at that and I thought it was scary, I thought of it as a strategic approach of like, hey, a new life experience is going to add more value to who I am. So why not? And I think that leads to an interesting kind of next thing that I wanted to talk about, which was I think that to be in a space where you don't feel like you need to plan everything and to be able to be more strategic in your view and your approach, you really need to have a good understanding about who you are as an individual. Like just a baseline fundamental. So maybe I have a really good idea. Just have a good baseline idea of like your values, your core values, and what you like and don't like. So I do think here I'll break it down for you. I think you should be a little bit more of a planner in your younger years when you're growing up. Like just go with the flow with the parents. Try lots of things, classes, subjects, sports, friends, and I think that's why in primary school, in elementary school, wherever you're listening from, they do make you do like a wide range of subjects, keep you really broad. That's why I think international baccalaureate like suited me because it kept me in touch with a lot of different subjects without starting to box myself into like just sciences or humanities or math. So I think if you can keep yourself as broad in terms of your interest and what you try out when you're young, it gives you a good idea of understanding like what my strengths are, what my weaknesses are, and not just serving yourself towards your strength. And I think from there, then you can start, once you have this good base of like, okay, this is what I like and I don't like, this is what I'm good at and what I'm not good at, this is my core values of what I believe in, like adventure and your opportunities, like comfort, family, etc. Then you can start opening yourself up to generally different outlets. So I think, and you can start being more strategic. So say you're at your final year of high school, you're choosing universities, you can start thinking, okay, right, so maybe I'm not 100% clear in like my passion. I don't have found this innate passion for like being a doctor, right? So then maybe I like a little bit of reading, I like a little bit of like history, I like a bit of math. Find something that helps you stay broad, study all those things, and doesn't box you into just like one output of a degree. Because I think when you get to university and you start evolving, you start to realize like you like different things. And one thing I learned in university was that just because you like it also doesn't mean that you're good at it. Like I liked sciences, but I don't think I was good at it to the level that I needed to be like have a degree and be a professional at it. And I think it's also just being like real with yourself. Yeah. I think I've always been quite real with myself since I had my rude awakening of my computer science section of life. That okay, I'm definitely not the smartest person in the room, and I'm definitely not the best at like a specific subject, but I'm very curious. I have a very strong willingness to learn, and I'm a great communicator and have really great soft skills. So let me understand and learn how I can choose different things to open myself up to more opportunities. And so yeah, let me know if I'm being really vague about this, but I think I'm trying to get to this end point where I think that if you can ground your strategy and how you decide to do things based on your values and the experiences that you are looking for, then you can open yourself up to more opportunities and keeping a broad path forward without having to have a distinct plan. Yeah. So that's my view on being like strategic versus over planning. I think there is a lot of danger in over planning. And I think when I say over planning, I really feel like a real danger in just choosing one path for yourself in life and saying like that was my path from when I was like 15 or 10, right? Because there will come a point when maybe you're no longer interested in being a doctor. Maybe you have an accident and you like hurt your hand and you can no longer do surgery. Maybe something other health thing happens or a family thing happens, relationships happen, and you're not in the position to be able to do what you like think is your passion or your path anymore. Or say like you're a sports star, your tennis career is only X amount of years long. You need to have other interests. You need to know like what else makes you tick. And I think that ability to keep searching for new and learning new things is what will keep your life broad and exciting and will make you generally a happier person. So I want to get to this happier section in a little bit. Um, and I think like, yeah, I don't think it's necessary. Yeah, let me get into this in a second. But just capping off the being strategic point of view, I just think that um, if you can be strategic more about like understanding if I do X, this opens up this many doors for me, or it keeps me able to be in contact with all of these interests that I still have whilst learning about these things, then you will have a more like you will be able to not feel so confined or constricted by your choices. That is my summary of being strategic versus over planning. Okay, I'm talking about this being happier situation. So I don't think like the whole idea of um so when I say I think be happier, this is comes from I think I'm like is not planning so in so much detail and like over planning your life and being over structured in your path forward into the future, making you a happier person. And I think overall I would say yes. I think that there is truth in the whole notion of like being present and being able to live in the present moment without thinking too far into the future. I do think thinking too much about the future can be really crippling. And don't get me wrong, I think sometimes I definitely feel like a bit paralyzed by the future if I think too hard about it or if I overplan it and I don't spend enough time keeping my eyes open to what's around me in the present and really taking in my experiences. I think in the moments that I have been very present and said yes to things in the present and been very aware of my surroundings and what I was currently experiencing, I was able to really yield the best memories and learnings from those experiences. Versus, I think when you're trying to multitask and you're trying to think about your future whilst being present for others in conversation, in like relationships, in work, it does make it really hard for you to bring your best self. So I always think back to when I lived in Myanmar because I do always feel I don't know if you guys have traveled in Southeast Asia, but I do think people in Southeast Asia are generally like nicer and happier people. And you can see it like in their faces. They're not like when you meet a person from Myanmar, they are just generally really nice. Same with Indonesia. Like they're so nice, so willing to help you, not really being like over analytical of like, what am I getting out of this conversation? What am I getting out of this like interaction? You know, it's not so transactional in the engagements. And I think it's definitely more like, how can I help you? Like I genuinely want to help you get from point A to B, find that restaurant, like find this salon you're trying to go to. And I think to a degree, it's this in Southeast Asia or specifically in Myanmar, I can speak to the most. I felt like the people felt more present because I feel that they felt they were less distracted by the noise around them. And I do think that has to attribute to the country being definitely like poorer and in a more impoverished state than somewhere like Australia, where we were born into like efficiency and like everything happening at once. Like technology, education, like great water. There's all these things that you take for granted. But living in Myanmar, I definitely learned to take all those things, like to value all those things so with so much weight. I used to get excited about traffic, like a pedestrian crossing being built or like a new road being laid out, because these are not things that you have access to so naturally and like um, with such accessibility in Myanmar. So I do remember traveling out into remote areas, in farm areas where they lived in such basic, such basic houses that were just on stilts, made out of wood, no electricity, no fresh water. But these people just every day wake up, they go and farm to live. They don't think. I don't think they think really beyond like their farm area, their village, and ever have to like waste thoughts on like, oh, which country am I going to travel to next? Like, what am I going to do as my university degree? What am I going to do this weekend? Should I go with my friends? Should I have a drink? Should I buy that dress? You know what I mean? And I think sometimes bringing yourself back down to this level of thinking of being able to be so to have less, right? Yeah, of course, it's not a benefit to have less, because in a way, obviously they have less opportunity um, if you take the view from like a developed world. But who's to say that they're not happy in that situation? They might actually be happier just, I focus on what I do every day. I be present. I take in this beautiful sky. I farm, do what I want to do. And I don't have to have this pressure of thinking about planning my next 5 years or planning XYZ. So I'm just trying to give you like an extreme other version of, I think that there's a happy medium of how much you plan, right? And I think we can all I always felt like I could always take a page out of their book to really just take a step back and be more present and mindful and appreciative of what I have as a human. And I've been born into being privileged of being able to live in a country like Australia where we have such great accessibility to things. But there are a lot of other people out there who don't have that. And I don't think that they are worse off. I actually think some of them are a lot happier than the people that I know. So I think for us, we actually have I feel like I sometimes owe it to people who don't have the opportunity to travel, who don't get the opportunity to see these new things, to like go out and experience and be open-minded and not restrict myself to like one path or that town that I live in, or being super comfortable with one person in my whole, like with forever, that I'm not happy with. So what I'm saying, I think, is that there are many views of planning, but I really believe that you should not overplan in life. You should sometimes take it day by day, take it minute by minute, second by second, and don't cripple yourself by the idea of having to conform to a certain type of personality, conform to like liking certain type of music, or or trying new things. I think as I've gotten older, I've really noticed that like no one really cares about you that much and what you do. Like people think, like post on social media and people think about it forever, but I promise you, people really don't care that much. People are way more concerned thinking about like, oh, what does everyone think about me? Like everyone's very concerned about themselves. So I think you should just try more things and not be scared to go on a path off the beaten track. I actually believe in taking the road less taken. It's like my advice to everybody. I personally find it really exciting, and I think that everybody has a different comfort zone. But that's why I think that you can find what your comfort zone is, understand yourself, try a range of things, and you'll know what you like and what you dislike and where your comfort zone sits. So I think like my last kind of thing is that I think saying yes to things is so important, and pushing yourself out of your comfort zone is so important. I think I purely believe everything happens for a reason. Like everything that you experience in life and the opportunities that you have lead you to your next like experience. And there is like a multiverse. Like there are many yous in this world that like if I had done X and stayed with this person, my life would be like this now. If I hadn't have gone to Myanmar, my life would be like this now. But that's just like the fun of life. It's kind of this fun experience that you're going on of what's going to happen next. So I do think that the more you say yes to things, really random opportunities come up. Like I met Alex, my fiance now, by saying yes to something that felt very out of my comfort zone. And I can talk to you guys about that at a separate podcast. And I got my job by going to a networking event that I felt not that comfortable with going to because I get a little bit anxious, but something awesome came out of it, like a job. Um, so I think that every time I've been open minded and kind of been like, you know what, it's okay not to plan, it's okay to go with the flow, just say yes and see what happens. I feel like I've forged a new path that's very exciting. Um, and I think when you say have this yes mentality though, and have this mentality of like, oh, I won't overplan, you need to accept that not every experience is going to be fantastic, but it's more accepting that from every experience that I have, I'm going to learn from this and see what I get out of it, right? And make it into like a beneficial thing as opposed to a mistake. Make it into a positive instead of a negative, because I think from every situation you can learn, and it's an opportunity to understand yourself and the world better and those around you. Yeah. Okay. Last thing is, um, I would say, well, I guess two things. One, trust your skill set, your curiosity, and just keep saying yes to things. And remembering it's really not that bad. Like, if you're nervous about going on a date with a new person, just go, just see what it's like, and learn more about yourself. Someone who's different, like an artist, that you're very like corporate and they're very artistic. Try it out. You never know. You might be the perfect match. If you're scared about going out with a friend because they're meeting their new group of friends, it's okay. You don't have to hang out with them once. Then you'll learn, do you actually like them? Do you not like them? How to talk to people when you don't know them as well. Go to that networking event that you're really nervous to go to, but you might be able to meet your future boss. Go to a wedding that you know nobody at. I can tell you about that story another time because you might get a really great cultural experience out of it. But I think overall, my takeaway from this that I wanted to share with you guys is don't overplan your life. Try not to put all your eggs in one basket, because when things don't work out, when you plan so intensely, you need to be okay with things not working out to plan. And I've learned this through so many experiences from a young age that you can plan all you want, but life happens and things things get in the way. So if you can be more strategic with your mindset of this is who I am, this is kind of what I like, what I don't like, I'm going to start to go more this way towards that island of who I think I want to be, and you try out these different experiences, you're only going to learn more about yourself and evolve more and more. So put yourself out there, get out of your comfort zone. It can be really anxiety triggering, but at the end of the day, you're always going to get an experience out of it. And just take a deep breath and channel your inner Sasha Fierce and alter ego. Okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. Before I go though, I do need to give my peanut butter tidbit of the week. So I don't know if you guys have ever tried Maver's, great Australian peanut butter brand. So they have a lot of different blends and mixes of like almond butter, cashew butter, like mixes of like chocolatey kind of peanut butter, not peanut butter, but like multi butters, as well as peanut butter. I love the roasted crunchy peanut butter. Of course, it's crunchy. Tanae doesn't eat smooth, but the roasted is super nice because it's roasted, so it adds this extra like aromatic flavor. It's really delicious. You can get it at most supermarkets, and if you're like overseas, outside of Australia or New Zealand, you can definitely get it online and in different specialty stores. But I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. I will see you in the next one. Dose pieces. Peace. Pieces. That was lame. Okay, bye.